Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon. I'm Andi, and as you know, my job is to get you off the brink. What you don't want to do is get stuck or stalled, and so many of my clients are stuck or stalled. And I am always fascinated by how people can listen to the stories others can tell them and realize, my gosh, I can do that as well. But now we're in a very fast-changing time. And people are either resisting it like humans do because they don't like change, or they're embracing it and they're not quite sure where it's going, but it seems like it's fun to be on a journey. Today, I have Allister Frost here with us. Allister is from the UK. So thank you for joining me across the oceans. I appreciate it. And he's going to talk about the work he does to help people be future minded at a time when it is a mindset. How do we begin to adapt for what we don't know? And how do we play? I like curiosity. And I bet he's going to help you understand how you can take your curiosity and understand the future of work and of life in a time when we are uncertain what's coming next. Remember, as an anthropologist, somewhere around 100,000 or 400,000 years ago, we invented fire. And that little technological transformation gave us food that we could eat and digest, and our brains were transformed. And look where we are now. We're not quite sure. But we do know that there's new stuff coming. Let me give you a very brief background of Allister, and he's going to tell you more about his story. He was with Microsoft in the UK about 15 years ago. So this is sort of a new old story. And he built a reputation for challenging conventional thinking. I understand, because I, as an anthropologist, am always asking, but what could we? And after leaving corporate, he developed a wonderful career as a speaker, advising and mentoring leaders. He's known for breaking growth myths that keep organizations stuck or stalled. Now, I have one book called Smashing the Myths of Women in Business, Rethink. I have a new book coming out called Rethink Retirement, Smashing the Myths. Myths are human and they're also holders. They keep us back. Then there's the mindset and the psychological safety. And then we have all kinds of things that are going to keep us from doing what we have to. So, on that note, I want us to introduce you to Allister Frost. Whether you're watching or listening, Allister, thank you for joining me today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Who's Allister? What are you going to help us with?
Thanks, Andy. That was a magnificent introduction, wasn't it? And you went right back there to when we invented fire. I had no idea you'd been around for quite so long. I've also been around the block a few times, and and I've seen a lot.
But think about it. I mean, as humans, we are creators and we're curious. And who
That's
knows
right.
how we took what was fire that happened and turned it into something we controlled.
Yeah,
And I don't need to talk about old divide tools, but fire is my fascination. How do we do
exactly.
that? Right?
Yeah, yeah. It's something I often say to audiences and remind them. And you said there, we don't like change in the intro. Actually, I challenge that because I think actually human beings in a world where there is no change would be extremely bored because we are the most adaptable, change resilient species on Earth. That's why
Right.
we invented fire. That's why we're talking across the ocean using this incredible technology and, not, foraging around in the forest for food to eat like the pigs or other animals.
I
So
know.
we are an extraordinary species for change, but we have unleashed so much change upon ourselves. I think there are new skills that we have to learn just to keep up and thrive and stay relevant and useful in the workplace, particularly.
Well, though the brain, that oldest reptilian part, the amygdala, likes to delete me. It likes to fight me, flee me, fear me, and protect whoever is listening to us. So for today, I'm going to ask the audience every time your brain says no, but say that's a good idea. And listen to your brain change as it's listening to the good ideas. So, Allison, before we get too far along, who are
Mm,
you? What is your story?
yeah. Well, my story is I spent 20 years in the magical world of the corporate businesses, American businesses, with Kimberly Clark, that great manufacturer of
Mhm.
soft paper products for intimate parts of the body. But also, I then, after 10 years, went to join Microsoft. And that was 15 years ago, nearly, that I left Microsoft. I was there for a decade and I lived through some extraordinary transformative times. I'm an advertising guy, a marketing guy by background. And so I really led Microsoft through through the transformation from analog, traditional forms of communication into a lot of the digital stuff that has taken over our world. And whilst I would not accept full responsibility for some of the horrors that has unleashed upon our world, I do accept that, it was a really transformative time. But now, what I do is I saw while I was at Microsoft that the difference between those two career things. So Kimberly-Clark, very traditional manufacturing company and brilliant company, don't get me wrong. And I still meet clients that are a bit like this. They kind of had this mindset, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it was this attitude of, it's okay, we're doing well, let's keep going. And yet, even all those 25 odd years ago when I joined Microsoft, Bill Gates was already trying to get the world to wake up to the fact that if something works today, it is already obsolete. If something works, it's obsolete. And it was the juxtaposition of those two mindsets that really fascinated me. How would the world transform itself from, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, to it's already broken, we have to fix it and keep going. And that's really what I've spent the last 15 years doing, is working with organizations, leaders and teams to help them think about change differently, to recognize that it's not a threat, it's an opportunity. And there are so many things, literally everything, if we accept that premise that everything is obsolete, so many things about the way we work, the way we live, that could be done differently. Now, that doesn't mean we have to change them, but it does mean we have an opportunity to if we choose.
You help our audience understand the way you go about it. I'll be brief on how I've learned. Um, Unless somebody sees it or does it, they don't know what it is.
Mm,
And the resistance comes about out of the mystery. And the door opens and they don't know whether they should go through or not. And
mhm.
so, as you're working with organizations, my hunch is that you get a joy out of helping them change, as
Mm.
opposed to the way it works. It's already obsolete. Share with us your own approach, because I'm anxious to understand it and maybe apply it myself.
The greatest thrill that I get, Andy, actually, is not at the organizational level, it's at the individual level. It's when I speak to people or I speak to groups, but people talk to me afterwards and they say, oh, wow, I realize I maybe have been cruising. I have taken my foot off the gas. I'm not as open to learning as I used to be. And they realize suddenly when they confront the realities of our world and the speed with which things can change today, how quickly they themselves could become obsolete. And that's a hard word to use, but that's the truth of it. Organizations, the economy relies on people who are smart thinking, they're efficient, they're fast, they're doing things, they're pushing boundaries. And as we gain experience in life, we get used to doing things a certain way and we get used to our comfort zone, don't we? And so that's the greatest thrill I get, is when individuals realize, I have got a little bit comfortable. I am protective of the status quo, not because I know it's the right way or the best way to do it, but because it's what I know, and therefore it feels safe. And so that's what I try to help people to do. And fundamentally, it's the simplest things actually that give me the greatest thrill, is when people recognize that, by doing something in a suboptimal way, or sort of, using a shortcut, or just sticking with the old way of working because, to learn the new thing would be quite a lot of work. Recognizing that, if by carrying on with the old ways, you are effectively borrowing time from the future. You're borrowing time from your future to make today a little bit easier, because at some point you are going to have to learn that new thing. You are going to have to confront that change, whether, through your own choice or because the organization or the world imposes it upon you. And there are so many things, of course, that in life where new things come along, and we have an opportunity, a choice, whether we want to embrace those or say, no, it's not for me. It's increasingly hard to stay in the workplace and useful if you choose to say, no, it's not for me.
I think for CEOs or leaders, some of the biggest challenges they have. I had one great client, and I finally said to him, I'm leaving. I can't work with you because you aren't changing anything, but you're asking it of your staff. They're
Mm,
all humans are copycats. And if you're going to go about doing things the way you always have, they are safer not risking their own jobs by doing things the way they always have. So, with humans being copycats and leaders resisting the new, how do you get them to begin to see what's possible and to lead others down a pathway that could be or not be the right one? I mean, the uncertainty is
Mm,
what really is unsettling.
mm,
Some of your wisdom.
mm. I think a lot of my work with leaders begins with getting back in touch with your own humility. And I think it's quite hard when we're in, the more senior you get, I certainly experienced this, the more you sort of, people turn to you for advice and they seem to sort of hang on your every word and they do what you say. And it's all rather nice. But the truth is, with the world getting faster and faster, it's harder and harder for any of us to be futurist or to know what's coming. Frankly, nobody knows what's coming. And that's why I talk about being future ready rather than future proofed. It's a very small difference in language. But
Yes.
when we think about, oh, here's a process or a system, or we've future proofed it, it's kind of in the past tense. It's finite, isn't it? We've done that. We can now think about something else. No, you can't, because it will still be, it can be improved again and again and again. So with leaders, what one of the stories that I say is that in my experience, I didn't get better at predicting the future or knowing what we need to do next as I became more senior. Arguably, I got worse
Yeah.
because I was more detached from reality. I wasn't even close to the details. I was not really understanding customers as much as I was caught up in my bubble of leadership. And so humility is a wonderful skill. In fact, I'd say it's the very first thing that you need if you want to have a future ready mindset, as I call it, is to accept that you do not have all the answers. It is unreasonable to put that pressure upon yourself, and nor should anybody else expect you to know exactly what is required next. So it's that shift from being from having knowledge is power, from being a know-it-all to being just a curious learn-it-all, wanting to know the next thing, and having that humility in front of your team members to say, look, I don't know the answers. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to every step of the way, but I need your wisdom. I need every person in the team to look at what they know about the world that we do, the job we do, and how we service our customers, and bring your ideas, because that's where the richness will be, not in what I see from my position. Humility is a wonderful thing. It's quite nice as well for a lot of leaders as well, because it does rather takes the monkey off your back, this sort of pressure that you've been feeling of, I've got to have the answers. Give yourself a break. Why would you know what to do next any more than anyone else? The future is notoriously difficult to predict, harder now than ever before. So work with others. Tap into the wisdom of the crowd. Don't put it all on your own shoulders.
It's so interesting listening to you because I often preach that you can't predict the future, but you can prepare.
Mm.
And since the future is actually already here, it's not just not widely distributed yet. Um, so now becomes a time of tasting and testing. How do you go explore? I'm an explorer. My archetype,
Mm.
explorer and philosopher. Don't know how they come together, but I'm curious, like you are, about what's possible. And my first book, On the Brink, was about 8 of our clients who had gotten stuck or stalled. And as an anthropologist, I took them exploring.
Mm.
You intuitively do that,
Mm.
but we went to see what their customers were doing, often not using the stuff they made the way they thought they would, or go out to people they wanted to have as customers to see what they were doing. I encourage them to be, curious. Spend a day in the life. They said, "What does an anthropologist do?" I said, "I hang out, listen to what people are talking about, and let that build an idea bank for you of things that are already beginning to come." And
Mm.
then begin to sort through a process for, what's hot, what's not, what are we going to park? So process is involved, but curiosity and exploring is essential. And as
Mhm.
you're working with them, some of the things that you do to help them see the future that's coming, it may already be here, but thoughts.
When because futurism and knowing what's going to happen is hard. One of the words that I find quite helpful for a lot of people is to think about the inevitabilities. There are many things that are inevitable about our work and our lives. You might only sort of ascribe 90% probability to them, but they're inevitable. Just as, if you plant a tree, it will grow leaves in the springtime and the leaves will fall off in the fall.
Great, great metaphor. Right.
Right? We know that's going to happen. And so we know that there will be budget cycles, there will be new leadership, there will be changes. We might not know when, but they are inevitable. They will happen. The new IT system that you've spent 3 years embedding, it won't be new forever. It will get out, it will be outdated and something else will come along. That is inevitable.
Yep.
Now, when you focus on the things that are inevitable, you're investing your time more wisely than having a complete punt in the dark. You can, and there are so many things. So I describe a future ready mindset. It's a very simple process for individuals and organizations to think and plan for, to ready themselves for the inevitable
Yep.
changes and challenges of the future. And so that really brings your time frame focus, brings it much closer to home. So you're not thinking 20 years out, it's nothing, it's probably 3 months out, 6 months out. Don't try to go further. What is inevitable? And there will be so many things that you'll spot, that you'll quickly realize, oh, there are lots of things I could improve. And then the challenge is to focus on what is most important, not to try to do everything. But the other word that you brought up there is curiosity, and it's so important. I have a process it's called the Frost framework by a lot of people because it spells my initials, but I call it the ready already growth cycle. And curiosity is the first of three superpowers in there that I love to get people to reconnect with: human curiosity. And because I want this to be practical and easy for people to do, I try to make it very parochial. And I say to individuals, I want you to look at your job, look at your work, look at what you do with naive curiosity, like a child.
Yes.
Remember when you were a kid and you could ask mum, dad, anybody, any adult, why, all the time? Why? Go into work tomorrow and literally when you park your car, start asking why. Like, imagine you're 5 years old. Why is the car park so far from the front door? Why is the sign broken? Why is there nowhere to put my trash in the car park? Just, like, really obvious, just like
Yeah.
childlike questions. And it's really hard to start doing this because it feels silly. But the minute you then apply that to your work, you say, well, why do we have this meeting? Why do we have so many products? And you suddenly realize it is okay
Yeah.
to question the way things are. And the beauty of doing that with your own work environment is everything you discover is something that you may have the ability to improve in some way. So that getting back to childlike curiosity, I think is a really great entry point to starting to see that. I call it open in my model. It's the O in Frost. Open your mind to the possibilities that are there. It won't tell you how you should improve things, but it will show you, gosh, that could be different, that could be different, that could be different. And suddenly you're overwhelmed with possibilities. Oh my goodness, nothing has to stay the way it is if I choose to make it better. That's quite an empowering thing for not just for leaders, but actually for everybody in an organization, whatever your job. Look at things like a child and question them.
Now, if it's Frost, what is the R then?
So the R is react. So I should probably start with F so this makes sense. I'll go
Yes.
through it very quickly. F is follow. Follow is make a list of all the inevitable changes and things that you need to be a little bit better at in the very near future. Just make a list. Write down all those things. The books that you promised yourself you'd read, the podcasts you subscribed to, you never got around to listening to, the things that you wanted to learn. At some point, you thought, oh, I've got to do that. And then life got in the way. Make that list and then pick one thing.
Uh-huh.
And then the R is the react. And this is about validating that is the right thing for your future. So go away and learn all about it and learn properly. Don't just lazily ask AI or Google for an answer. Learn like we used to learn. Read a book, talk to an expert, go to a conference, really immerse yourself in the subject because it's important to you. And then choose your reaction. That's why it's called react. Should I go deeper into this thing or not? Or is this actually, maybe I've chosen the wrong thing? That's a little check step I put in the process, because when there are so many possibilities for things we could improve, it's really easy to pick the wrong thing because it looks the shiniest, it looks the most exciting. It's like, oh, I want to do that. But actually, when a little bit of learning, you quite often realize, actually, it's not all that. It's not really what I want to do. Maybe there's something else. So if that's how you feel after learning, you just go back to the follow step and pick the next thing on your list that catches your eye. And then the last, so that's follow and react. And then the O, S, and T are my three superpowers that are, as I call them, they're things that AI technology cannot do as well as the brilliant biological human brain. But there's skills that kind of get beaten out of us over time as we become adults, as we get set in our ways,
Yeah.
as experience tells us how to do things. And so it's open, which is open your mind with naive curiosity. Surprise, which is surprise yourself firstly, with the enormity of your creativity and your ideas, actually have ridiculously bold ambitions, ridiculously grand ideas about what we could, we should buy that company, or things that you know in your heart of hearts they're never going to happen, but actually allowing yourself to go to that possibility
Yep.
and entertain it in your mind for a period of time sometimes uncovers that it isn't so crazy, it isn't so ridiculous. And you know how it is with ideas, they always get a little bit smaller, they always get beaten down by the practicalities of life. So surprise is about allowing yourself to go big before life and reality gets in the way.
Yep.
and and that's again a thing that humans do really well and tech can't. And the final one is tell, T for tell, which is about you've got to courageously tell others about what you've been thinking, what your dreams, your hopes and ambitions are, but do it in a way where they don't do what you describe, which is say, no, that won't work, but get them to do it in a way where they say, yes, and we could try that. Yes, and so they're being additive and constructive and helping you to turn those things from a vague notion or a crazy idea into something that collectively we think, actually, we could do that,
It's interesting listening to you. I like your Frost as a way of organizing the process,
Mm,
because there's a process here
mm,
of discovery.
it is.
And it's not a shotgun, it's got a bit of a focus and a rifle to it.
100%.
Which is much healthier for people as opposed to bringing a lot of ideas. And we'll figure
Mm,
out which ones, are testable in some way, and which ones are urgent, important, necessary, and nice. I mean, you can,
mm,
there are lots of ways of organizing it, but this is the focus and the superpowers that humans have to discover, like an anthropologist might, things
mm.
that could enhance or change what's going on. Um, Talk to me about how you help them hear what they are or see actually what they're seeing. Because one of the problems people have is that I'll have them listen to stories that people are saying, and they're trying to fit it within their current box.
Mm,
And I keep saying, no, don't, it's not what the box is. It's what are they really saying? What do you hear? And
mm,
it's bigger than a box. And what you're discovering is that your superpower isn't sticking it in the box. It's observing or thinking about what's possible by creating a new sandbox. Perhaps people say out of the box. It's no,
mm.
maybe you're creating a whole new box. And it isn't just simply being incremental, it's being transformational. So how do we make them listen? How do we help people listen with an open mind and without being limited by what they already know? Any thoughts?
Well, the process that I prescribe, I do a lot of this through keynote speaking. That's, I travel around the world speaking at conferences and things like that. I've also got a book already that goes through the nuts and bolts of the detail of it. But for me, the reason it works and it cuts through is because it's really for each individual to do something that they truly feel personally motivated by.
Ah,
So that is in the center of my model. So you've got the frost, which is the 5 steps. There is another piece in the middle of the model that I call personal mission. And that's the heartfelt reason why you earn your success in the service of others. It's about purpose. It's about recognizing the miracle of your work and how it benefits others in some way, because we know that humans are social creatures and we are motivated by, we might think it's about money, we might think it's about possessions, but the greatest source of happiness is knowing that you can help other people in some
yep,
way, in a meaningful way. So what I try to do is I make this very focused on the individual as a process. Each person can have a different personal mission. They can be depending on their life stage and their outlook and what floats their boat, and then they can pursue things that matter to them. So this idea of oh, is it the box, or am I reinventing the box and all that? In a way, you're kind of driven to want to do that anyway, because this is something that truly matters to you.
yes,
And in an organization of 1,000 people, in theory, we could have 1,000 different things being followed. In the first step, we could have 1,000 different topics of interest across that organization. And that's when you tap into the brilliant diversity of the human spirit, because we've got lots of people motivated by stuff they really believe in, but is also relevant to the work that they do and trying to be useful. And that's so much more powerful than everybody sitting in a room and listening, 1,000 people listening to one leader who thinks they've got the answer. They
yep.
don't. 1,000 people with lots of different perspectives. Wow, we're going to uncover some incredible changes.
Sure. It's so interesting. My husband and I both went to Brussels a number of years ago to become trained as innovation games facilitators.
Mhm.
And I love innovation games for exactly the reasons that you're talking about, because while I like to take people out to see things, sometimes the creative process requires us to play, to game. And the
Mhm.
games become a way of taking us out of the everyday into a zone where it's safe to think big or different or be happy.
Mhm.
And so, some of the games, whether it's a spider web or it's reverse everything or it's remember the future,
Mhm.
all of a sudden the mind opens up to possibilities. And so the tools that we use are all there to open our minds to what's possible. Now, sometimes talking about the future becomes off-putting. And so I just talk about what's possible. You have what you know, and the habits take over, but what's
Mhm.
possible? Let's play. Let's see how the creative process could open up bigger ideas that could add incrementally or transformationally. So better ways to do things. And they're open because it's a game. And I
Mhm.
share that with you. Sometimes it's theater. I say, let's write a new script as if it's a new play. And you can perform on stage as if you were, Robert Redford or Vanessa Redgraves, and you can take on a new role. Oh, I can. Yeah, you can. And so
Yeah.
all of these are tools to move people from my habits, I know what I'm doing, to, oh, I can do something really new. This is such fun. Now, you do have a book. You
Mhm.
want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, but yes, the book's called Ready Already, which is what I want people to be. I want you to be ready already for whatever life throws at you
Ah,
next. Now you're going to figure that out for yourself. It's a very simple process because it's about, and the book really is a guidebook. It's a companion to my talks, but it also operates as a standalone level. If you want to get stuck into this stuff, it's got exercises in there, simple things just to help you get out of your rut. Help, and there's a fair amount in there about change and about breaking down our resistance to change and helping us to think differently about our relationship with it, and also to recognize that it's in our best interest to have a go, just
yeah,
try something. And then there's a chapter on each of the steps in the process to guide people through it. But yes, curiosity is one of my favorites. You're talking about it's wonderful when you get some sort of transformative experience like that, when you've got a guided creative experience where people suddenly realize, oh, I'm allowed to have ideas. Oh, I can be creative. And I'm so tired of hearing it from people. As soon as I say the word, right, this next bit is about creativity, you can actually physically see some people shrink in their chairs.
oh, I know.
Oh,
This is the body language.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
The body,
goodness. I
like they're
said, no, you have
closed
to
because,
open your
oh no,
arms.
I'm not
That's
creative. I'm not
right.
creative. And then yet we're all creative. If you can daydream, you're creative. It's as simple as that. And that's one of the things I do talk about in the book because it is the Frost framework or the ready already growth cycle. It's quite an individualistic thing because I do want people to do it for themselves.
Yes.
And some people might discover that actually working at company X is not really where their future should be. It's not about making people move jobs, but I want them to follow that you get one life, live your life to the full, be you. And so creativity is something that I do write in there. You've got to sanctify that. We're all differently creative.
Yeah.
Um, and some people, I'm most creative. I wrote this in the book because I've noticed this. When I'm just waking up, there's a moment for me where I'm just sort of waking up. I'm not quite awake, but I'm not quite asleep, but my brain starts processing the day. And I love that moment when I realize I'm in it because I have some amazing ideas.
That's
The hardest thing is remembering them, of course, but I can just let my mind play. I'm thinking about the day, I'm thinking about what I was doing, whatever it is, just let that happen. And I'm really creative in that moment, as well as when I'm running or walking. We're all different. Very few people, or I've asked the question thousands of times, no one has ever said to me that they're most creative with a flip chart and a pen in the
right.
dark meeting room at the end of the corridor. You know that one,
But you're
which
talking
is where
about
we
the
try
way
to
the
make them
brain
creative.
sorts out all of this information at night. Your
Yeah,
brain is reorganizing the prior day, and it's
exactly.
preparing. And one of the things that I often, coach people to do is the night before, put together what you need to do the next day, the next morning.
Mm,
Get your brain already organizing around it. I too, like you, find my mornings are my most rich point.
mm,
I don't know what happened the night before, but boy, those ideas come together
mm,
and also things that I shouldn't do. And I often am fascinated by I wake up and I say, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to do that. And I get out a little note to whoever we were discussing. I said, I woke up and it's not a good idea. If my wake up is not a good idea, the other thing I encourage people to do is a quiet mind. It works so much better than a cluttered one. So go take a long walk, quiet your mind. Don't listen to any music or anything else. Just listen to the birds and quietly walk. Except here it's snowing, but
Mm.
it is a way to let the mind do what it's supposed to, which is create solutions. And my last little wisdom, tie into yours, is stop saying we don't do that. Oh, my favorite words. When I
Oh,
walk into a new client, the first thing they tell me is, well, we don't do that. And I said, well, that's why you hired me, because you don't do it.
maybe you could.
Maybe we could.
I love it.
Well, we don't know how to
Yeah.
do that. Of course, you know how to do that. And your mind is perfectly happy in the old habits and doesn't want to learn new, but you can,
Mm.
and we can learn together.
Oh, I
Tell,
love that.
tell our, this has been wonderful, Alistair. It's terrific. Tell the listeners if they want to know more about you, where can they do that?
Oh, it's really easy. If you can spell my name, Alistair, that's probably the hardest bit here. Allister. It's very unusual spelling. Allister Frost. You will find me online. You can go to readyalready.me, and that will help you to start getting ready already. You'll find lots of information there about the book, about what I do, and I love it when people reach out. So please let me know your thoughts. It's always good to hear from people.
Also, tell us a little bit about what do you do? I heard keynotes and I hear clients, but we sort of scope it out a little better so people can appreciate the kind of wisdom you can bring to them.
Very often I work with C-level leadership teams. So I'll work with them to help them to just confront what is the change agenda? Why is it working? Why is it not working? What could we do differently? And I help those leaders to start to see things differently. And then often I'll go down through the organization, different departments and teams, training, workshops, masterclasses, virtual training, all sorts of things, and also, of course, as you mentioned, those keynote talks. So I'll put on a show. I'll jump on the stage and I'll get everybody energized and excited. And one of the things I love to do is to get a few superheroes up on stage too, to show how easy it is to have those superpowers and to actually use them to good effect. To remind ourselves it's okay to ask why. It's okay to say what if, to dream big. And when you communicate that to the right people, incredible things can happen. So that's how it all works.
I'll give you a what if story and then we can wrap us up. I was doing a workshop in Chicago and somebody from Ohio sent his sales manager in. And he said, oh my gosh, I was out with our sales team listening to the client and they were going to buy the product. We were making our commission. But the client kept saying, what if? Could you? Do you know who? How do we? And I ignored everything he said. But that's where
Mm.
all the opportunity was.
Yep.
He went back to Ohio and created the what if sales process. And
Mm.
I throw that out to you because what if is really where all the opportunities are. So rather than destroy the opportunities, you can sell your product, but the client needs more than just your product. They need your wisdom. And so all of this opens up your mind to listen and hear what people are saying with an open mind. Now, people say, well, it takes us in other directions. I said, that may be exactly where you need to go today, in another
Maybe.
direction. You
Mm.
don't know what you don't
I
know.
love that.
This is
I love
such,
that story. I love that story. I mean, what if? Yeah, if you're selling, what if is a very clear buying signal
yeah,
most of the time because it is. It shows someone is putting in the cognitive effort to process the possibilities, and they're starting to see other scenarios that they might also like to buy. But of course, it's also really powerful if you're not selling, you're not trying to buy, you're literally just trying to figure out what your future could be. Well, what if? Dream big, smash together two things that have never been together, and there's a new possibility.
yes.
But do that in a way that works for you. We're all creative differently, and when we recognize that and understand that, and sanctify those moments,
Yep.
celebrate them, go for a walk. I will just before we go, I'll add something because my friend told me this. I love this tip. He went for a walk with his dog, and he normally listens to some music or something on his headphones. And by accident, he pressed the wrong button on his headphones, and they had different modes. A lot of noise cancelling headphones have this, and this was one that amplifies ambient sounds. So it's actually the listening mode. And he realized that he could now hear his footsteps in the grass and the mud. He could hear the dog walking alongside, making more noise. And he said this was the most extraordinary soundscape to walk with because it amplified, it really made everything more
Wow.
intense. And that for him was a way of partly just disconnecting, but also allowing your brain to just go to a different place. So I'll give that tip to you. It's not mine, it comes from Nikki Forster's brilliant idea. Maybe try that next time you're on a walk. Don't listen, well, obviously listen to this podcast because it's brilliant, but don't listen to music. Just if you've got some of those headphones, try the different modes and just really try to not just listen to the birds, have them really amplified, make it even more intense.
Now, your
See
point,
how it
though,
makes
is
you feel.
interesting because he didn't have to do anything with it. He just had to be experientially open to growing, right?
That's
You don't have to do it all. You just need to see possibilities because you don't really know where that's going to come into play with something else that comes to you. And I often say, listen to what people say because life is full of serendipity. They will say something and you'll say, I was listening to someone yesterday, or I heard my feet in the grass, and all of a sudden things emerge, and that's the way our lives have been designed, right? To grow. Isn't this fun? Well, I'm going to say goodbye because I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you so much. For our listeners and our viewers, remember, you have made us number 18 among the top 100 podcasts on the topic of change. And I couldn't be happier that today we have a great gentleman, and Allister Frost has a wonderful process to help you change. Even though your brain is going to delete him or fear him or flee him or run away, he's going to help you get past that. And don't undermine your curiosity. Let it go. It's okay. The times they are changing, but this is good. All of my books are on Amazon. On the Brink is about 8 of our clients who got stuck or stalled and could have used a little Allister stuff, but a little Frost would have helped. Rethink, Smashing the Myths of Women in Business, or women who said, of course I can. It's sort of interesting to watch the juxtaposition. And my third book, Women Mean Business, is 102 women who left their wisdom for us to share. So there's 500 more pieces of wisdom. And one that I love is As I Rise, I Lift Others. And that's what this podcast is all about, to get you off the brink and rise along us. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Enjoy, stay well. Remember, my tagline is take your observations and turn them into innovations. I'm sure Alistair will tell you that's where the opportunities are, aren't they? Yes. Alistair, thanks again. Bye bye now.
Thank you. My pleasure.